I'm 25 years old now, but that New Year's Eve remains burned into my memory as if it happened this morning. I was 7 years old. My younger brother Mason was only 4. Our parents had received an invitation to an upscale party at a downtown hotel, so they'd arranged for Sophia to watch over us for the evening. Sophia was a 19-year-old college student who babysat to cover her textbook expenses. We'd had her look after us before. Mason adored her because she actually engaged with us rather than spending the whole time glued to her phone. She arrived around 7 o'clock that evening, dressed in jeans and a baggy sweater, her blonde hair tied back in a ponytail. She'd brought coloring books and made us a promise we could stay awake until 11 o'clock to watch the ball drop on television. Before we continue, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on, and tell me in the comments what city you're watching from. Alright, let's dive back in. Your parents should be back around 1, she told us as she settled onto our couch. So we going to make this the best New Year's Eve you ever had. Sounds good, I said, though I was pretending to be too mature for needing a babysitter. Mason was already eagerly displaying his new action figures to her, while I tried to act uninterested. Everything seemed perfectly ordinary until approximately 11:15. Then we heard it. A woman's blood-curdling screams erupted from the corridor outside our apartment, followed by the sharp crash of shattering glass. Sophia's head whipped toward the door. She rose slowly from the couch, instructing us to remain where we were while she checked the peephole. I watched the color drain completely from her face. "What's happening?" I asked. She didn't respond. Instead, she grabbed her phone and dialed 911. I could hear her urgent whisper into the device. "There's someone in the building. We're on the 8th floor, apartment 804. Please, hurry." She ended the call, then turned to face us with a forced smile that couldn't hide the terror in her eyes. "Guys, we're going to play a game, okay? We're going to hide in the bathroom and stay really quiet, like ninjas. Can you do that for me?" Mason thought it sounded exciting, but I understood something was seriously wrong. Sophia grasped our hands and led us quickly to the bathroom. She lifted Mason into the bathtub first, then helped me in, and drew the shower curtain closed around us. "No matter what happens, you two need to stay in here," she said firmly. "Sophia, what's going on?" I whispered, my voice trembling. "Just promise me, Alex. Promise you'll stay here with Mason." I promised her. As she started to leave, she paused and knelt beside the tub, looking at us through the gap in the curtain. "I need you to be brave, okay? Trust me, I'm going to keep you safe." What came next would haunt me forever. Mason and I sat in the dark bathtub, our breathing the only sound besides the distant hum of the building's heating system. Then we detected footsteps in the hallway outside our apartment. They were heavy and deliberate, stopping at each door. I pulled Mason close, covering his mouth with my hand. My chest felt like it might burst from my racing heart. The footsteps stopped directly outside our door. There was an agonizing silence before the doorknob began to rattle violently. I heard Sophia's voice, muffled but clear enough to understand. "The door's locked. The police are coming. Just leave." A brief pause. Then something massive slammed against the door. Sophia's scream pierced the air. I was shaking uncontrollably, and so was my little brother. We heard a tremendous crash like furniture being knocked over, followed by the sound of running footsteps. Mason started crying in my arms, but I clamped my hand tighter over his mouth, desperate to keep him quiet. Whoever had broken in was now moving through our apartment. He was moving fast. I heard another crash, this one closer. The intruder was tearing through our living room. He kicked open my bedroom door with such force it slammed against the wall, making me nearly jump out of my skin. Then his footsteps headed toward the bathroom. I held my breath as the bathroom door swung open. Through the crack in the shower curtain, I could make out his shadow. He was tall, wearing a black ski mask. In his hand, he gripped a meat cleaver. His fingertips were dripping with blood. He took one step toward the tub, but just as he reached for the curtain, Sophia screamed from somewhere else in the apartment. "Hey, over here!" The man spun around and ran after her voice. I heard him chasing her, heard her footsteps pounding toward the stairwell and the heavy door slamming open. Then there were sounds of shouting mixed with sirens. The police had arrived. Everything happened in a blur after that. Officers flooded into the building. Someone pulled us out of that bathtub. A female officer wrapped us in blankets and asked if we were injured. I was shaking so violently I couldn't form words. "Where's Sophia?" I kept asking desperately. They wouldn't answer me. My parents came running in about 20 minutes later, both of them crying as they held us so tightly it hurt. They kept repeating that we were safe now, that it was over. But I didn't feel safe because I saw the paramedics wheeling someone out on a stretcher. I saw the blood soaking through the white sheet and a blonde ponytail hanging off the side. That night, Sophia nearly died saving us. She'd been beaten so severely that when the police arrived, she was unconscious. She had broken ribs, a fractured skull, and internal bleeding. She spent 2 weeks in the hospital fighting for her life. The man they arrested was named Jox Ryder. He'd been released from prison just 3 days earlier and was hunting for the person who testified against him. That person lived somewhere on our floor, but Jox didn't know which apartment exactly. So he was going door to door, attacking anyone who stood in his way. He would have murdered us if Sophia hadn't drawn him away. I visited her in the hospital after she regained consciousness. She could barely speak. Her face was covered in dark bruises, but when she noticed me standing there, she attempted to smile. "You stayed in the tub," she whispered. I nodded, and tears started streaming down my face. Even at 7 years old, I understood I owed my life to that girl. Sophia eventually recovered, but she never babysat again. She moved to a different city for graduate school. My parents covered all her medical bills, established a fund for her college education, and struggled to find adequate words to express their gratitude for what she'd done for us. Mason and I are adults now. We both have our own lives, our own apartments, our own problems. But every single New Year's Eve, we meet at Sophia's place. We order pizza, watch the ball drop together, and remember the night a 19-year-old girl chose to place herself between 2 children and a monster. She saved our lives, and we will never forget it. The Blizzard Confession. I was working the overnight shift at the hospital that New Year's Eve. I needed the money desperately. The blizzard started around 11:30 and intensified so rapidly that, within minutes, you couldn't see 5 feet in front of you. I was watching scary story videos on YouTube when I heard someone slam heavily against the front entrance. I buzzed him in, and he practically collapsed through the doorway, soaked in blood. He was breathing hard, his eyes darting frantically around the lobby. I hit a deer. My car went off the road. It stuck in a ditch about a mile back. "Please, you have to help me." In an instant, I'd gone from watching scary stories to living inside one. "Are you hurt? Is this your blood?" I asked, trying to assess the situation. "No, it's the deer's thing," came out of nowhere. His teeth were chattering violently. I increased the heat, grabbed some gauze, and started cleaning the blood off him. The guy was unshaven, with tattoos creeping up his neck. Naturally, I felt a bit alarmed. As I cleaned him up, I leaned in closer, and that's when I noticed something disturbing about the blood's consistency. It was too thick and too dark. My uncle hunts regularly, so I've seen deer blood plenty of times. I could swear this wasn't it. Where exactly did you crash? I asked carefully. What? Your car. You said it went off the road. Yeah. Route 26, about a mile back. I walked here through the storm. I'd been watching the parking lot window for hours and hadn't seen any headlights pull in. His hands wouldn't stop shaking, but his eyes were constantly moving round the room, taking in the door, the window, the phone mounted on the wall. Is anyone else working tonight? He asked. That question made my stomach drop. The overnight doctor's in his office. 2 other nurses are doing rounds, I lied, watching his jaw tighten noticeably. All right, he said, in a way that made me deeply uncomfortable. He stood up abruptly. Can I use your bathroom? Sure. Down the hall, second door on the left. The second he disappeared around the corner. I locked the exam room door from the inside. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone, but there was no signal. The blizzard must have knocked out the cell tower. I tried the landline on the wallet, was completely dead. The storm had taken out everything. I heard his footsteps in the hallway, but he wasn't heading toward the bathroom. He was walking in the opposite direction, toward the supply room where we kept the back exit. He was checking the layout of the building. I stayed completely silent and pressed myself against the wall. Through the gap under the door, I could see his shadow stop right outside the exam room. He tried the handle twice. I know you're in there. Open the door, he said, his voice calm but insistent. I didn't move. My heart was pounding so hard I thought he might hear it. Look, it wasn't a deer, okay. My blood ran cold. She was hitchhiking, and I just wanted to feel less alone on New Year's Eve. Is that too much to ask? I tried to kiss her, just a simple kiss, but she slapped me and called me a freak. After that, I just couldn't let her walk away alive, you know? I mean, she probably slept with 1,000 random guys, and now she's calling me a creep. Girls these days are impossible. I felt sick to my stomach. I'd let a murderer into the building, someone who'd killed another person for rejecting him. I shouted that I'd already called the cops and he needed to back off. But he just kept laughing, saying I was lying and there was no way I could have gotten through. I knew the door wouldn't hold long if he decided to force his way in, but shockingly, he did nothing like that. Instead, he calmly sat down right outside the door and continued talking to me. You know, people like her, they bring it on themselves. I offered her company, kindness. It's New Year's Eve. Everyone hates being alone on the holidays. But she acted like I was garbage. He chuckled softly, and the sound made my skin crawl. She hit me, spit on me, called me a creep after everything I did for her. He shifted, leaning his full weight against the door. I could feel the pressure through the metal. They think they can treat men however they want, and nothing will happen. So yeah, I handled it, and I'd do it again. I pressed a hand over my mouth to keep from making any sound. I'm going back for her after I warm up, he continued casually. Storm's perfect for covering tracks. I'll get her off the road, bury her deep in the snow. Snow will hide the fresh dirt. Nobody will find her till spring, if even then. I felt dizzy and nauseous. The blizzard outside roared, but his voice cut through it, loud and clear. You seemed like a smart guy, he murmured. You're not going to tell anyone I came here tonight, right? He didn't wait for my answer. Good. Because if you did, he laughed under his breath. Well, let's not think about that. I even left you something, a gift, right by your door. His boots scraped against the floor as he stood up. He didn't try the handle again. He didn't bang on the door or shout. He just walked away, humming softly as he headed down the hallway. I waited until I couldn't hear his footsteps anymore. Maybe a full minute, maybe 5. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the keys as I unlocked the exam room door. The hallway was empty. I sprinted to the main entrance and locked it with trembling fingers. Only then did I notice something on the floor by the exam room door. Something small, glinting in the dim light. A shine in the darkness. I swallowed hard, turned on my phone flashlight, and crouched down to look closer. It wasn't metal, it was a human ear. A woman's ear. Small, pale, and frozen stiff. A silver stud was still pierced through it. I nearly collapsed. He'd had it in his pocket the whole time we were talking. He'd been inches away from me while carrying a piece of her body with him. I locked every door and window in that building that night. I sat with my back pressed against the wall until daylight finally broke through the parking lot windows, casting away the darkness. Since that night, I checked the news every single morning, local, state, national, hoping they'll find a body and I can finally go to the police. But I don't have the courage to come forward because I know he's watching me somehow. I get that feeling every night when I'm alone. I just hope that sharing this story here might help me sleep better. The farmhouse proposal. Nathan and I had only been dating for a month when he started pressuring me to spend New Year's Eve at his family's farmhouse. The place was 2 hours outside the city, buried deep in the woods, next to a lake that looked pitch black even during daylight hours. There were no neighbors visible for miles in any direction. The second we pulled into the driveway, the front door swung open before we'd even made it to the porch, and his mother practically tackled me. "Emma, you're even prettier in person. Get in here, we've been waiting all day." She grabbed my hands and squeezed so hard it actually hurt. Inside, the place smelled of aged wood mixed with something sickeningly sweet. All the furniture looked ancient. Every wall was covered with these disturbing photos of people with blank expressions, staring straight ahead with empty eyes. As we walked into the living room, Nathan's uncle's eyes glazed over as he looked at me. "Emma, you're hot," he said bluntly. I went completely stiff, but Nathan just laughed it off, telling me to take it easy and not mind him. How could I relax when his uncle couldn't stop leering at me throughout the entire dinner? Every single time I glanced up, he was watching me with this disgusting smile, licking his lips. Nathan's mother was just as unsettling. She'd stroke my hair without permission, squeeze my shoulders too tightly, and grab my wrist every time I made the slightest movement. "Have more," she insisted, dumping another pile of grey slop onto my plate. "I'm completely stuffed." "Really, I can't eat another bite," I protested. Her smile remained frozen in place, but her fingers dug painfully into my wrist. "Just one more bite, sweetie." "So, Emma, tell us about your folks," Nathan's father said, leaning across the table. They're back in the city. My mom teaches philosophy. Do they know you're here?" he interrupted. That question stopped me cold. I looked at Nathan for support, but he refused to meet my eyes. I mumbled an awkward yes and quickly returned my attention to the food on my plate. About an hour later, Nathan's mother carried in a cake with "Welcome to the family" written across it in red frosting. Suddenly, Nathan's father stood up and pulled out a small box from his pocket. He set it down directly in front of Nathan. I felt ice shoot through my veins when Nathan opened it. Inside was an old, tarnished ring with a black stone that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "Nathan, go ahead," his mother said with a giggle. Nathan grabbed my hand and dropped to one knee. "Emma, will you marry me?" I tried to laugh it off nervously, my heart pounding in my chest. "Nathan, it's only been a month." "I know," he said, grinning widely. "But when you know, right?" This is insane, I said, my voice shaking. Nathan's mother's entire face changed. Aren't you his girlfriend? She demanded. Yeah, but so you'll marry him then. Maybe eventually, but we need more time to time. His mother's voice went shrill. Time for what? You ate our food. You're in our home. You're part of us now. I came for dinner, not a wedding, I said, my voice cracking with fear. His uncle pushed himself up from his chair aggressively. What an ungrateful I jumped up to leave, but Nathan grabbed my wrist hard. His father stepped in close, blocking my direct path to the door. His uncle moved to the other side, while Nathan's mother positioned herself behind me, trapping me completely. Please, just let me go home, I begged, tears starting to spill down my cheeks. I tried to pull away from Nathan, but his grip only tightened painfully. His uncle grabbed my other arm. Between him and Nathan, they started physically forcing me down into the chair. I struggled and fought, but they were too strong. Sit down. You're embarrassing me, Nathan hissed. Stop it, please, I cried. Nathan's father pulled the ring from the box. Put out your hand. No. His uncle wrenched my arm forward violently. Nathan held my wrist perfectly still. His father moved the ring toward my finger, ready to force it on. I had to get away. I searched my brain desperately for any potential escape route until something clicked. My parents, I screamed suddenly. My parents have to be here for this. Nathan's father stopped moving. What? My parents, I choked out through tears. They need to see this. That's how it's supposed to be done. Nathan's mother frowned deeply. We don't need, yes. It's tradition. Please, they have to be here for the proposal and everything. They exchanged uncertain looks. Nathan's grip loosened slightly. She's stalling, his uncle muttered darkly. No, I'm not, I swear. It's supposed to be a union of two families, two. That's the proper way, isn't it? I mean, Nathan deserves a grand celebration after all this. I looked at Nathan, pleading with my eyes for him to believe me. He looked at me carefully, and his face softened just a little. Fine, Nathan said slowly, finally releasing my wrist. I'll go get them. His father didn't look convinced at all, but Nathan had already grabbed the car keys and was heading toward the front door. I should give him a good luck kiss, I mumbled, wiping my eyes and following a few steps behind him. As I passed the table, I sneakily grabbed the cake fork and slipped it up my sleeve. I know you have doubts right now, but once you're officially in the family, you'll understand, Nathan said at the doorway, turning to face me. I nodded, stepping closer until we were standing just inches apart. I went up on my toes, as if preparing to kiss him. He closed his eyes, waiting for my lips to touch his. Instead, I jammed the fork into his eye as hard as I possibly could. Nathan went down screaming, clutching his face as blood poured between his fingers. The car keys hit the porch with a metallic clatter. I snatched them up and bolted for the vehicle. His mother started shrieking behind me in rage and horror. I didn't look back until I dove into the driver's seat and shoved the key into the ignition. The engine turned over right as Nathan's father reached the window, hammering on the glass with his fists. You made a mistake, he roared. I slammed the gas pedal down. Gravel sprayed everywhere as the car kicked sideways, then straightened out. In the rearview mirror, I could see all four of them standing on the porch under that yellow light, just watching me tear down the driveway into the darkness. I drove for over an hour before I could finally pull over. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Nathan's blood was splattered all over my sleeve. Every time I blinked, I saw the image of the fork going into his eye. I've moved apartments and I'm now staying with my parents for safety. I can't go to the police because I technically assaulted Nathan that night, even though it was self-defense. I just hope we never cross paths again, because I don't know what his family would do to me if they ever found me. If this story moved you, hit subscribe with notifications on, and tell me in the comments what city are you watching from.